people don't really listen to the pre-show. I know it's just warm up for us.
They mostly just complain about it.
They mostly just complain about the pre-show, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's here for. It's here to complain.
Yep. I'd rather than complain about the pre-show than the main show.
Yeah, me too.
So.
I mean, I think most people should skip the pre-show.
Yes.
Unless you're a masochist and want more pre-show, then you sign up for Patreon.
Yeah, those are your choices. Either no pre-show or all the pre-show.
Extra pre-show. Yeah. Anyway, Daniel, this now is the perfect opportunity and timing to bring you up to speed on Formula One.
Up to speed,
you
say?
I can't say that because it's trademarked by Donut. But
I believe that.
Yeah.
Why is this the perfect time, you think?
Well, as you may know, there is unrest in the Middle East.
I'm aware of that. Yes.
And thereby the related regions which host Formula One races this time of year, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, are no longer hosting their Formula One races.
Didn't that news originally leak because some of the drivers were on commercial flights and people overheard them talking about it? Because that was what I heard.
I mean, it was kind of obvious.
It's pretty funny, though.
Whenever, what was it? The WEC was delayed because that's supposed to start in Bahrain, and they just didn't do it. Now they're not starting until Imola in April or May, I think. Whatever. They're not starting until Imola. And so once WEC canceled, it's obvious that F1 is going to cancel. But what that means is we have this horrible, awful, extremely long break.
Yeah, it's a drought. F1 drought.
We had 3 races. Now there's not a single race in April. And then there's a race in May.
Wow.
Which means, based upon our podcast release schedule, I can talk about F1 right now, and everything I say now will still be relevant in a week.
I mean, it depends. So, there's a lot of drama in F1 world.
Daniel,
that drama is not always tied to races. So,
but this is why I want to catch you up. So there's been 3 races. Kimi Antonelli, the 19-year-old from Mercedes, is currently winning the World Drivers' Championship because there's been 3 races, and this is the best thing that could have possibly happened.
Why?
Because Mercedes has, because they're big old cheats, has the best engine and the best car right now, and everyone keeps saying, "Oh, George Russell's going to win because he's been at Mercedes for whatever 6 years or something dumb." Not probably. Has it been 6 years? Maybe it's only been. Was he there in 21? I don't know. He wasn't there in 21, so it'd be 5 years. Anyways, he's been in F1 for a little while, and he's the senior driver at Mercedes, and so everyone's like, "Well, he's a senior driver, and Mercedes has the best car. He's going to win the World Drivers' Championship." My general feeling about Formula One is that I just kind of want everyone to do good and have a good time.
You just want everyone to be happy.
Pretty much anyone on the grid except for Lance Stroll and George Russell, if they won a race, I would feel pretty happy about it.
So why do you exclude those two?
Well, Lance Stroll is kind of there because of nepotism, and everyone says that, and it's probably true. Who knows? His dad owns the team. He's not very good, but he still has a seat forever until he doesn't want it. I don't know. And then George Russell, I just don't like him. He's
just don't like him.
It's not because he's British. I just don't like his face.
Is that something you'd say to him if you met him in person?
No, I would be nice. I would say,
what if he listens to this podcast? Have you considered that possibility?
Look, George, if you listen to this podcast, 1, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. 2, I hope you don't win the WEC or WDC, World Drivers' Championship. Yeah. Wow. I hope you keep losing.
We have 1 fewer listener now.
Now, if he loves camera gear, I mean, where else is he going to go?
That's true. He'll just be one of those people that complains about the pre-show.
He'll just skip the pre-show. That's the whole point. Skip the pre-show. Anyways, I just don't want George to win. And so, like, Kimi, 19-year-old.
Wait, this person's name is Kimi?
Kimi Antonelli. He's Italian.
Okay.
I don't know why I said it like that. Yes, I do. Anyway, he won his first race like last week in China, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Like his first race ever.
Yes. Well, he won. Did he win a sprint? Anyways, his first race ever, he won, and then because of some wild circumstances in Japan, he won Japan, and now he's winning. And then we're going into this break, and I just hope that George is going to spiral. Because we've seen George when he gets upset, and he's very, like, snippy. There's one time he, like, got out of his car and like slapped Bottas because he crashed into him. It was a whole thing. He can get real Georgie whenever he gets mad.
Real Georgie.
And I just want that for him. You
want that for you more than for him.
I want that for me.
Yeah.
I want that for him. For me is for him to really just get too much in his head over the next 4 weeks about how he's losing to a 19-year-old that has 1 year of experience. Oh man.
Yep.
And this because if he has to stew with it now for 4 weeks.
Yep. Yeah. He can't redeem himself until May, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And so all of my discussion here on Formula One is really about Mercedes just not doing good. So the other important thing here is that one of the things with the rules this year is they're allowed to bring upgrades to their engines every 8 races, I think.
Okay.
Because it was 24 and it's 3 times this year or something like that. And depending upon like how much behind you are from the leading engine manufacturer, based on some percentage of whatever performance, you can bring like more upgrades or less upgrades.
Like still on an 8-week cadence, but like the amount of changes you can make.
Yeah, something like that. And they're not changing the cadence as a result of dropping the races. So that's 2 less races that Mercedes gets to have like the best engine before people are allowed to bring upgrades.
Wow, I bet that's controversial.
Yeah. And we had 3 races, now we have this huge break. So everyone gets to pour over the data from the last 3 races.
Yeah, they can turn some wrenches for for the next
exactly.
month.
And so like everyone's going to bring tons of upgrades to Miami. It's 2 less races for Mercedes to get ahead. And it's just like kind of turn the whole thing on its head.
Yeah. That is some pretty hot drama in F1 land.
Okay. The other thing is to bring this back to camera related stuff. They have so many cameras on these cars.
For the live broadcast, right?
For the live broadcast. And like you can watch the camera feed of the driver on their hot lap or whatever.
Hot lap.
Yeah. So Formula One posted Kimi's qualifying lap because he got pole position, which is first in the qualifying. So he starts the race at the first. And one of the things with these new cars is they're hybrids that are 50% for electric motor, but they only allow you to discharge so much power, and the batteries are only so big.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yeah, so they can't maintain max power through the end of most straights.
Right.
And so what teams are doing is they get towards the end of the straight, and then they shift over to recharging the battery, and they're calling this super clipping. I assume that's just marketing.
It sounds like something from a video game.
I guess so. But what happens, like the speed just drops off. And so whenever Formula One posted this video of Kimi's lap, they cut the onboard right before he super clipped and went to a wide shot.
A little suspicious.
And then went back and they said, there was a camera error. Some real convenient camera error.
Yeah, what do you think happened?
And the internet is losing their biscuits over it.
Yeah, because they think he basically like discharged more than he's supposed to from the battery or something.
No. I think they think that. So everyone's mad about the rules because it's so much battery management and like the drivers are like it's like driving Mario Kart, and none of the drivers like it, and a lot of the fans are upset because it's not like V8s or whatever, and it's like they're gonna have to change the rules a little bit, and there's a lot of is consternation the right word? I don't know.
Constellation.
There's not a lot of consolation about these rules. And everyone's a little mad about them. And F1, to try to smooth things over, is kind of like hiding the bad parts of the race.
Oh, so that's what it is. It's not like they're not saying that he cheated, but it's more like they're not showing the boring part.
Yeah, F1, the people who cut it are pretending the camera broke so that people don't see the speed just take a tank. This is supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsports, Daniel.
Yeah. They look like a bunch of sissies if they're slowing way down for the turn.
Exactly. You got to keep that throttle pin.
Interesting.
It's very controversial. So the rules could change in the next 4 weeks as well.
That'd be wild too. How do you think they transmit from all those cameras to? Because you can watch that live, right?
Yep.
So
sure
how do you think they do that?
What with Teradex?
just a million Teradex.
There's a lot of Teradex.
They have like 12 of those per car, and then however many cars, just the whole frequency band.
I know that they have done different articles or talked to the press or YouTube about how they do the camera broadcasts on these things, but I'm not actually sure. I would expect that it's got to be some not proprietary, but custom thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
for
curious,
Formula
like,
One.
what the strategy is in terms of do they get like a cellular signal or something and then stream all of it together, or like, is it a separate stream per camera? I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. They
It's probably
only
not something we can look up
they
live
only show
necessarily,
one
but-
angle on the stream. Like whenever you're watching, you can go pick a driver
Mhm.
to see their live car view
Oh,
while
okay.
you're watching it live.
But then afterward, you can see it all. So maybe they're not streaming all of the cameras from the car.
They're streaming. It seems that they stream one camera.
Yeah.
So you can see the broadcast feed, or you can see one camera
Okay.
from any driver.
So the rest of them
but-
could be recording on board.
It doesn't seem to be necessarily, because I know that during the live broadcast, if something happens and they need to hit a replay, they're limited to certain angles.
Yeah.
And they can't seem to go pick up one of the other angles off the car during replay. It seems like it's just the one or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a good question.
Yeah. Maybe we can look it up at some point and see what information's out there on that. Be interesting to know what they're doing.
Would be interesting. Be good. That would be a good tie-in. Anyway, it's all very exciting. Break's coming up, and everything's going to change in Miami.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel,
And I'm Lucas.
and we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
This AI overview is suggesting both 10 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz wireless transmission.
Doing both at the same time.
I guess for different cameras.
I didn't know you could transmit on 10 gigahertz.
It seems pretty short.
Yeah, must be some special spectrum or something.
My low raw sensors are like megahertz.
Yep, that's very low. Much lower than 10 gigahertz.
Sure is.
Whole lot lower.
Whole lot lower.
Usually you get more range, with a lower frequency signal.
Yep.
So
Go through more walls.
mm-hmm.
Memory shortage.
Memory shortage. I hope you're happy with your memory card collection, for your camera. I know you've talked in the past about being in a micro SD debt, and I hope you're out of that debt now. Let's put it that way.
Sony suspends nearly all memory card sales as global flash shortage hits filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
What?
So Sony stopped accepting orders for almost all of the CF Express and SD cards they make.
Oh no!
They still make one specific 960 gigabyte CF Express card and like their low end set of SD cards, but most of their stuff they're just not taking orders anymore because I guess they can't make memory cards cheap enough.
Oh no, that's just Sony though, right?
Well, so far, but I mean, it's not a good sign.
Oh no.
I don't know how much you track some of this stuff, but there's been a lot of news recently related to the memory shortage. Like if you've heard about like the RAM shortage stuff.
Definitely heard about that. What's the name of that company? OC something? They make sticks of RAM. Maybe they have some.
Maybe you're talking about OWC.
Yeah, that sounds right.
They make CF Express cards. I have one from them. So there's been this RAM shortage lately, which like RAM is kind of similar to these, but it's not exactly the same, right? Like RAM is usually a lot faster than a memory card, but I think it's all kind of related. What's interesting about this though is that that RAM shortage has been like a big deal, and if you wanted to buy like RAM for a computer or something, I mean, it went
Good
up.
luck.
It went up from like for certain configurations, or it went up from like $150 to like $700 last year. So it's just like out of control. And I don't know what that was. It just made noise. It was something on your end.
You sure? Oh, wait, hold on.
Pretty
It's this
sure.
check-in whenever I left for your house. Even though I'm in Do Not Disturb, I guess Apple gets to overwrite that?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, that's not fair.
Anyway, so there's been this RAM shortage, and the prices have been really high. And this week, as we record this, some news has come out on that front. So the reason that RAM shortage happened was because OpenAI of ChatGPT fame went to South Korea, and they on like the same day or within a couple days, they signed a nearly identical deal with two major companies that supply the memory for RAM. And
Micron.
Micron is like related, but I don't think that's not one of the companies. One was SK Hynix. I can't remember what the other one's called. It may have been Samsung actually.
Samsung.
And the funny thing about it is that both of those deals are like almost identical in terms. And OpenAI didn't tell either of those companies that they were making a deal with the other company.
What?
And they basically, when I say a deal, they basically gave them a letter of intent that wasn't binding and just said, we want to buy this memory. And the amount of memory that they said they wanted to buy was like 40% of the global supply of memory.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And so this caused like major ripples in the industry because these companies were like, oh no, like OpenAI is going to need all this stuff. Like we're not going to be able to supply memory to everybody else. It caused all kinds of problems at all the companies that supply like cloud services and stuff because it was just like nobody can get RAM anymore. And so that all happened. And then fast forward to this week. Oh, and another fun thing in there. Back in like December, Micron, who you may have seen in the news recently, back in December, they shut down their consumer line of RAM.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Doesn't Micron supply like some insane amount of RAM?
I think they're a pretty big supplier of it. And they just shut down their consumer market to serve like the AI industry instead. That consumer brand had been open for like 29 years. So it was like a big deal.
Yep.
Fast forward to like yesterday, I think. Today or yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. As we record this, they like it kind of just came out that none of that is going to happen. So
I saw this.
OpenAI's projections have gone down. They had planned to build this like massively expensive data center with Oracle, and they canceled the plans to do that because of like funding or something.
Not enough people buying those $20 a month GPT plans.
That whole like house of cards of like we've signed these letters of intent just kind of like all seems like it sort of collapsed. And so Micron's stock went like way down because
I saw that huge drop.
And Micron's kind of left, like, well, we don't have a consumer RAM division anymore because we shut it down. So that's not great. And
maybe they should bring it back.
They should. And now all the RAM prices are falling. So it's just like a really chaotic time in this stuff. And I thought like that whole long thing to say, I thought it was really interesting that all that happened. And then today we see this article about Sony Japan not accepting orders anymore. So this sounds really bad, but I'm also kind of wondering if next week we'll hear like, oh, just kidding. Like, it's all still there. So
who knows? It's all just a total mess out there. I just need to be able to buy a 24 terabyte hard drive and I need it to not cost $1 bajillion. And I need to have memory card options for my cameras.
What do you feel like you would pay for a 24 gigabyte hard drive?
Nothing, because gigabyte's way too small.
Oh, terabyte.
I mean, I'd be happy with a 22 terabyte, but they don't make them anymore, which is really frustrating. Also, temporarily out of stock on B&H. That's annoying.
For what?
24 and 20 terabyte hard drives.
Well, if you were to get a 28 terabyte hard drive, you could get one right now on B&H for $580.
I'm looking at 28 terabyte Iron Wolf Pros on B&H, and it's $620. I do not know what you're talking about.
There's a $40 coupon applied in cart.
Oh, there is one applied in cart. It's still. I mean, I don't $580 want one. I think I paid half of this. I think I bought my two 22s for I don't know, like $385 or $425 or something. I just need them to not cost $600 for 24 terabytes.
If you were interested in getting, like an internal SSD for your computer, they have a really insane deal today. They have an 8 terabyte Western Digital internal NVMe SSD. The normal price for this thing is $3,150, like $3,150.
Yeah.
But right now it has a $2,150 coupon applied in cart. So it takes it down to like $1,000.
Wow, what a deal!
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. Anyway, I just as soon as these prices come down, Daniel.
Yep. I think the whole shortage stuff is interesting because we were so used to living in a world where, you just kind of expect that things are always going to be available and that they're probably going to be cheaper later, like whatever that may be, whether it's a camera or, like, oh, I kind of need to get like a new SD card or whatever.
That's
like
just
you
been
just assume you're going to be able to buy it later and it's probably going to cost less than it does now. And I feel like more and more we've seen cases where that's not really true.
It's
Like
been
stuff
untrue since like 2020.
Yeah, stuff gets discontinued. Stuff randomly jumps up in price, and who knows when it's going to come down again. Like it's kind of like if you need something, you just need to get it when you can find a good deal, and not try and like wait indefinitely. I
remember the days when compact point and shoot cameras were cheap. RAM prices were always getting less. GPUs weren't wildly expensive.
Yep.
I don't know if that's ever been true. And Fujifilm still made Provia.
And you could buy Fujifilm cameras. Like they were just like in stock.
Oh yeah, you could just like go to the store and buy one.
Yeah. Crazy.
That world where you still live in.
Yeah. So if you need SD cards, stock up now because who knows what next week holds.
Ugh. I'm not going to. I'm just gonna keep shooting on mine until they all fail. All right, I guess we should let's talk about a camera that came up last week that you probably has also gone up in price.
You think so?
No, I would be shocked. I'm looking on eBay now to see if I can find one.
I actually just opened up eBay as you were saying that. I'm like, oh, let's see if they're out there.
I found one that for some reason is listed at $11.14.
Yeah,
but a lot of these are like $200 to $300 used.
More reasonable. Yeah.
That is more reasonable because Daniel, we are talking about the Light L16 pocket-sized DSLR.
This was
quality camera.
This was what I thought the light field camera was when we started talking about that.
Right, and you invoked this one, and I remember when did this come out, Daniel? 2015, something like that.
I thought it was
2015.
Was it? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it came out, but also it was
they
like
announced
weird.
the development in 2015.
It was like weirdly beta for a while. They required some software updates, and I think that people didn't really get full use of this thing until a few years later. Anyway, I remember seeing articles about this thing whenever it came out, and I just kind of scrolled straight past it. I was like, what even is that?
Because it looks so weird, right?
It looks so weird.
It's got, I mean, does it have it must have 16.
It has
lenses.
16 lenses on it, yes.
And they're arranged in what looks to be a completely random configuration. Some of them are different sizes. It's not like a grid by any stretch.
Yep.
It's just they're just kind of like sprinkled on there.
It's quite obscure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I remember seeing articles on this and not even being interested in reading them whenever it came out. So digging into this was actually my first time learning about this camera. And I kind of have a few questions for you towards the end here after we talk about it. But this thing was supposed to be a professional camera.
Just like the other one. Just like the Illume.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the interesting part of this is it's that 2014 to 2017 time frame, and all the point and shoots are tanking, smartphones are taking off, and when you have these two companies that are trying to replace the DSLR, and both of them just totally flopped.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of respect them, though, for trying new things. I mean, it has to have been that these smaller companies, look at like a Canon or a Nikon and think like, oh, well, we're not going to be able to compete with that. So, we need to try something different. And they were just kind of experimenting. And I don't know. I mean, I wish there was more stuff like this. Like, it's cool.
Like one of the things I wanted to talk about a bit later is, in the last 8 years, there's been less of this, it seems. I mean, the camera market isn't huge right now, but we haven't really seen companies come on the scene and say, we're going to replace the professional mirrorless camera with this new concept.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, we're not seeing any weird stuff like this. It's all just, refinements of the same cameras we're used to.
It's just kind of, it's all invested in the phone. And it seems like this concept has just kind of been given up on.
So okay, but why does this thing have? Why are they arranged like that? Like, why does it have so many lenses? Why are they all over the place?
Okay, so what this thing is it is a just a solid chunk of technology. Weighs almost a pound. It's 435 grams, and it's the size of like a big smartphone. It's whatever, almost an inch thick. So like 94
Yeah, it does look pretty
or
chunky.
24 millimeters or something, and then it's like 165 by 84 millimeters. So
Yeah.
that's about the width of a Pro Max size phone. It's actually about the size of, I think I'm going totally off memory here, but I think an iPhone something Pro Max is like 172 to 180 millimeters by 75 to 84 millimeters in dimension.
That's a really obscure number for you to just know offhand.
Daniel, I just know things sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes. So this is really close to the length and width of a 6.9-inch smartphone.
Okay.
But it's like an inch thick. It's massively thick.
It's real thick.
Well, the deal with this thing was it shot 13 or 52 megapixel photos, and it had 16 lenses on the back. And if you or I, you would have thought, oh, so it has 16 different focal lengths, and you just get a bunch of different focal lengths on a bunch of smartphone size sensors. And that is super not what it's doing. It has all of the lenses are either f2 or f2.8.
Okay.
It has 5 28 millimeter lenses, 5 70 millimeter lenses, and 6 150 millimeter lenses. So a bunch of each focal length. And then you can just zoom by scrolling on the screen to set anywhere between 28 and 150. And then it will take a picture with, I think it's like 5 of the lenses or something, and then create an image from multiple cameras, and it picks the cameras based upon which focal length you've picked and how it needs to best optimize it in order to do computational photography.
That's so weird.
It is something.
I'm still I still just want to know why the lenses are arranged the way they are. Like, there's got to be some mathematical reason or something that configuration like minimizes parallax or something, but it's just so weird to me that they're not like, arranged in a square or something. I don't know.
It's also weird that it's not an even, there's not like 5 of each.
Yeah.
They have one extra 150 millimeter.
Yeah.
And some of these are like periscope lenses. That was a big deal whenever that came to smartphones a few years back. Was like, oh, this is going to have a periscope style telephoto, and so you can get better optical quality and blah blah blah. They were doing it here in 2015ish. So it has 16 sensors. I was wondering if the arrangement was so that they could share sensors. Like, if you're only taking like 3 or 5 actual photos, maybe these kind of like share,
like they like
image or
multiple
whatever.
lenses like converge onto one sensor or something.
Oh, sorry, this says captures 10 or more images from cameras at once. Anyways, yeah, it's like, oh, maybe they can combine and not have 16 sensors. No, it just has 16 sensors in it. They're all like smartphone sized sensors. So
what a weird deal.
It's just super interesting. I mean, the computational photography stuff has gotten like really, really good. And it seems like the ceiling for something like this could have been pretty high.
Yeah. Like if it was running modern, a modern software stack and all that.
Yeah. Or even like if it was using modern sensors, like modern smartphone sensors, you could probably take this concept and make it 10 times better than with what this shipped.
Mm-hmm.
One of the limitations on this thing was it ran Android. That wasn't the limitation, but come on. But on cameras like 13 megapixel photos, you had to plug it into your computer and then run their software on your computer to process the 52 megapixel RAWs.
We've talked about with some of these previous cameras, and having to process something in external software is pretty painful.
Yeah, but now
especially if you have something like Android on it, because if otherwise that you'd maybe have the ability to like upload to Instagram or whatever. Like we've talked about that before too. But if you have to use computer software to process it, you can't do that.
The chip in my phone is the same chip that's in the MacBook Neo. It's like literally a computer chip. And I think that now with the current technology, this becomes viable, where they could have done all the processing on the device.
Honestly, now you might be able to do this live.
Mm-hmm.
You may just be able to click it and have it, there's your 52 megapixel photo.
Well, that was one of the things with this is that the preview camera was worse than the photo you were going to take. It was like, okay, here's this live view, and it's kind of taking maybe one of the cameras, and it just isn't really representing the photo that you were going to get out of it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But it's like you said, if you do this now, 10 years later, it would just be totally different.
Yeah.
Similar to that. What was it? What's it called? What kind of camera was that? Light field camera?
Yeah.
Similar to that camera, it feels like this was way ahead of its time. And the technology maybe just wasn't totally there.
Yeah, I mean, they had the right idea with computational photography.
That's definitely where things were going.
Yeah, but it's just not, the implementation, is lacking. And now you've got you have an iPhone that has 3 cameras on it. And, when it takes a picture, it's, mostly only using one camera, and then it does all that. I'm curious, how the computational photography concepts actually scale, in the sense that, if, you've kind of been saying, this camera could have been a lot better if it was made now, but I wonder if it really translates that way, in the sense that, if you took all the modern computational stuff, would this really be, significantly better than taking a picture on an iPhone? Or does the computational stuff make up so much of the difference that really you get about the same result with one sensor as opposed to 10?
I guess that comes down to whether or not taking 10 pictures with the same lens compared to taking 10 pictures with 10 different lenses and sensors will result in a better image.
Yeah, which I'm just not sure about.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I know you'd have to deal with parallax and that sort of thing. So they're going to have to adjust and compute accordingly. It may help with depth of field mapping if you were going to do some sort of portrait mode type thing.
That's what I would have predicted that this was for. I'm surprised it's not for that. But because when we talked about the light field camera, that was why I thought that's what this was. Because when I see that weird arrangement of lenses and the fact that there's so many, my first thought is, oh, it's so that you can, build some sort of 3D space. But I guess not.
It's possible that was where it was intended to go, and it just never got there. So a few things, I guess, just running through some of the specs. It was 100 to 3200 ISO, so it's fairly limited on the top end. It was kind of bad in low light, and it didn't really have a good multi-point autofocus system for tracking. It was kind of just single point focus, not good in low light. The comboing of images wasn't super great. It ran Android and had a built-in battery and built-in storage. And so you couldn't swap the battery, you couldn't swap the memory, but they wanted it to be used by pro photographers. It kind of only shot RAW. And it seems like you could offload some of the data from this to your phone, to an Android phone, to then process the RAWs. But it seems like you couldn't really do that on device. It was very much built to be a camera product where you then took the image off to do things, and not this is also a computer that does computer things in addition to taking photos. And I feel like that's got to be maybe the biggest uphill battle for this.
Yeah.
Is they're asking for this to be in addition to your phone, or to be a replacement for your mirrorless camera. And it seems like it could have been a lot better if it had all that software built in.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's the same problem with the high-res mode on Fuji. It's the same thing with all these things, where having to take it off the camera is just really painful.
One of the things I threw in this thing to kind of talk about this a bit was a link to a Petapixel article from, I guess, February of this year. And it is digital camera sales from 2007 to 2025. And it's a bar graph of camera sales in the millions or whatever.
Okay.
And it's just this substantial drop off from 2010 to 2019.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that's when that really was when the camera was just getting better and better every year.
Yeah, 2010, it looks like it peaks at almost 125 million. And then by 2019, it's less than 25 million. So you see this $100 million camera sale drop off in the digital camera market. And it's like, boy, the market for this thing just totally tanked.
Yeah.
And the interesting part of it is there's a second graph that they included, which shows like built-in lens versus mirrorless versus DSLR, and you see the rise of mirrorless kind of towards the end there. But the DSLR mirrorless group never really gets far above like 15 million.
It honestly doesn't really seem like it changed much.
It didn't change much. It's mostly stable, a little bit of a drop off, some growth since 2020 as people started getting back into photography and using these kind of cameras. It's that built-in lens market that just totally tanked.
Which makes sense when you think about it. That's the type of thing that a phone is really good at replacing now.
Yep. And that's also the thing that you would expect the L16 to replace is, hey, maybe if your point and shoot was as good as a DSLR, maybe it bridges that gap better.
Yeah.
And it's like phones totally took the market.
Did you look up the pricing of this at release?
It was like $2,000.
Yeah, so it looks like they announced it in 2015 and started taking pre-orders then at a reduced price of $1,300.
Whoa.
And then it didn't actually ship until summer of 2017. And at that point, the retail price was $1,950. And then they discontinued it in 2019. So
that's brutal,
painful
man.
that you buy a 2000. Oh, not just discontinued it, they also discontinued support in 2019.
Man,
imagine you buy a $2,000 camera in 2017, and 2 years later, this really specialized thing that nobody's going to know how to work on, and that requires specialized software, is to drop support 2 years later.
It's like you conceive of this product in 2013, whenever it's $62 million camera sales a year, and by the time you discontinue it, there's 14 million camera sales a year.
Bad time to try and launch a camera company, basically, and that probably
not great.
That probably contributed to their failure. I mean, it's just a rough market.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of mentioned, that this and the Illum seemed like they were trying to reinvent the DSLR. And do you think that this failed because it was too much like a smartphone, or do you think that the concept of trying to reinvent a traditional camera is like bad at the start?
I don't know. I mean, I want people to keep experimenting and making weird things, but I feel like this had the same problem as the light field camera, where they're kind of targeting the wrong market for it. Like, it just doesn't seem like you're ever going to really take over professional DSLR use with something like this, because you're never going to really be able to make up for physics with a large lens and a large sensor. And I think they would have been better off starting with the consumer market, making something that like regular people would like. But the problem then is that the price is so high that your average consumer in 2017 isn't going to want to spend $2,000 on a second point and shoot camera. So especially with the workflow being kind of clunky, so I just feel like they kind of targeted it wrong.
This it seems like if you geared it towards the same market as a smartphone, I feel like that could have been successful if it had a development path that followed that of your Galaxy S whatevers. It seems like they could have done something really, really interesting, but that just wasn't what this was for.
It really would have helped if they could have had, especially since it's running Android, if you could have, uploaded to Instagram from the camera. We've talked about that feature so many times. That would maybe have made it interesting for people.
I think that, the market for people who want to shoot on like mirrorless cameras, like interchangeable lens, professional cameras, I mean, that's fairly stable, fairly fun. I think that, the people who are in that market want that kind of product to take a certain quality image. And it seems to me that if you want to pursue any market outside of that, it has to be fun or interesting.
Yeah.
And it has, and you can't really sell it on like ease of use. If it's just like, I need to be able to snap a picture really quickly, that's your phone.
Yeah.
It has to have some other appeal. And it's interesting to me that, of this market where it's like built-in lens, who's really winning that market? It feels like it's things like an Instax.
Yeah.
Where that has just been growing and growing and growing despite the falling, consumer camera world, and it's because it's different and it's fun and it's interesting.
It's funny too because Instax feels like it just does not require the same level of engineering excellence that something like this does. Like this camera is really impressive, and people probably worked really hard on this, and it's really cool what they managed to achieve. And then meanwhile, Fuji's over there like, what if we made a instant camera again? And like millions of people buy it.
Yep. It's just because the fun is greater than image. Vibes are greater than image quality 100% of the time.
It's fun, but it's also more approachable. Like, you know, like the Instax is way more in impulse buy territory than this is.
Yeah, that's definitely true. $2,000. You gotta really want it.
Yeah. I mean, it was more expensive at release than, like, it was probably about the same price as a A7 III.
I mean, I think
no lens on the A7 III, but still, like, that's a tough comparison.
I mean, an XT3 with the kit lens on it was cheaper.
Yeah. Like, if you're looking at buying a camera, you know, you want to get into photography, like, what are you going to pick? You know?
Yeah, definitely. It's different value proposition, and I think it's maybe too weird to entice those users who are like, I just want to get a camera.
I'd love to see more weird things like this. Like, you know, and like you said, the past few years have been so, you know, kind of just like evolution, like, you know, just incremental improvements on the same sorts of cameras. And I'd love to see somebody do weird things to try and push things forward. Because sometimes you can get a good idea from those, and, you know, maybe there's a surprise hit somewhere. I don't know.
Do you think if someone launched this camera in 2026 and it had modern sensors, modern lenses, and like it had all the smartphone things that you would actually want, like being able to use, I don't know, like Halide or Instagram or whatever, TikTok or something, like, but it launched it this year. Do you think that there would be a market for that kind of thing?
It's so hard to say. It's still fighting the same battle with the smartphone, I think. You know, is this really better than your phone? And especially, depending on the price. You know, when it came out, it was probably about twice the price of what most people's smartphone would cost. Because I mean, iPhones for a while now, like the Pro one's been around $1,000. And now those prices are starting to go up. You know, if this came out now and was, you know, what, $2,400, you know, twice the price of an iPhone Pro Max, I just can't see it.
What if it folded in half and you could, you know, like open the screen real big and use it to edit your photo?
Oh, yeah.
Make it really expensive.
Yeah. just double the price again.
Just no one would buy it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the concept would need to be changed in some way to be effective now. What do you think?
I just wish there was more weird stuff like this, even though there's not really a market for it. I don't know. I like people trying.
I agree. I like it when people try. And that's the sad thing about this. Is, like I said, I feel like a whole team of people worked really hard on this and made something that's really impressive, and, you know, kind of a product of the time it was released in, and, you know, maybe some mistakes in terms of how they marketed it or what market they aimed it at. You know, it's just kind of a footnote in history rather than, you know, something we all still talk about. But it seems pretty impressive.
I think that like this and the Illume just kind of hand in hand, a year apart in the announcement, and both just didn't go anywhere. It feels very much an indictment of the same, just the same market conditions. It's really
interesting that there's two examples of that during the same time with like really pretty similar ideas and pretty similar results.
Yep. Well, Daniel, let's move on to the next thing.
If you'd like to support the Camera Gear podcast, you can subscribe to us on Patreon. It's only $3 a month, and you'll get early access to episodes, longer pre-shows, and occasional bonus content like written reviews of gear or maybe some photos we've taken on one of our recent adventures. This really does help us pay the bills and keeps this show running, and we'd love to have your support. You can find out more at patreon.com/cameragearpodcast, or there's also a link in the description for this episode. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
I keep adding this to the show notes, and then it keeps getting bumped. And there's so much technical stuff in this one topic that it requires me to review
Yeah.
and catch back up so I can remember all of my
you
points.
You can't hold all this in your brain.
I can't hold it all in my head. And you know what? I didn't do any prep work
Oh my gosh.
ahead of this one. And so I think
Do it live.
that'll help get this into the right length window for this conversation. And I will gloss over the more technical details, which will prevent me from getting them wrong, because then I just won't say them. And it'll be
strategy.
great. It'll be perfect. Anyways, so whenever Canon came out with the R6 Mark III and Sony came out with the A7 V,
yes,
the R6 Mark III did not have a stack sensor or a partially stacked sensor, and the A7 V did have a partially stacked sensor. And the R6 III seemed as if it was faster. It could do this whole like 7K open gate and had, like 18 millisecond rolling shutter in that mode. And
I think we talked about it in our episode. We're like, how is Canon doing this?
How are they doing it? In electronic shutter mode, and it's shooting 12-bit, it's doing 13 milliseconds. It's just so fast. And I'm like, how is Canon doing it? Like, how are they doing it?
How are they doing it?
What are they doing? And so I started to try to, learn as much as I possibly could about camera sensors, which is a lot.
Which is something you do all the time anyway.
Yes, true. And I threw a couple links in here, which Canon Europe and Global Canon have a lot of really interesting articles on just camera sensors in general, about like how they manufacture them and like what CMOS is and what CCD is and how those technologies work and that sort of thing. And they're all like mostly high-ish level. They're not like getting into all of the wild details of like what is whatever, ever got half the words, like a FM whatever transistor, blah blah blah. But
why do you think they have more of that stuff on the European site? You think is that the Europeans just ask more questions, or what's the deal?
I think that they're just bad at removing articles.
Okay, it's not cleaning up after themselves.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Got it.
So, anyways, both like the R6 Mark III is obviously like a CMOS sensor. We kind of as a base technology, as most cameras are, right? They're like printing these digital sensors. We moved away from CCD and having like individual transistors and whatever. And so, you can have like more photodiodes and blah blah blah, but basically like you have this sensor and it's got all these photodiodes, and then you have to like pull the light information off of it into like capacitors or whatever.
Right.
And then that analog signal has to like go through an analog digital conversion. And then once it's digital, then you can like do stuff with it and make an image. And that pipeline is like where the difference happens.
It's where the sauce is.
Right? Yeah, sure. It's where the sauce is. And so it's like you take that bucket of light or whatever off the capacitor, and then there's like the concept of like your signal to noise ratio and like how much gain you're applying, and like whether or not it's like a high gain or a low gain, and then whether or not like how much noise reduction you're doing before it goes to the ADC, and then it's just analog to digital converter. Then it's like how much noise reduction you're doing after the ADC.
Yeah, because you get a different result if you do it before or after.
Right, exactly. And all of that's like takes time.
Yeah.
And so like that's where a lot of this kind of comes out in the wash or whatever.
That's why I think what you're trying to say is like that's why Canon sensors could have different performance than like Sony sensors.
Exactly.
They're not all doing this in exactly the same way.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of like where we'll eventually get to.
Okay.
But so the fancy thing about Canon, and I've kept making jokes about dual pixel AF, but they're like the only one who's doing this whole like dual pixel autofocus situation. And what that does is like each pixel, like each photo site is split in two, and some are split vertically and some are split horizontally. And whenever they started like mixing it up so that some were horizontal and some were vertical, that was like a big deal at the time or whatever. It improved a lot of the autofocusing stuff, but essentially it processes image information from both sides of a pixel, and then using that parallax effect does like phase detection autofocus in order to determine like how to focus the lens. but because of that being like the primary means of technology, they effectively have to process information from both pixels. And so whatever your resolution of the sensor is, they have to be able to understand what's happening twice per pixel, which kind of like doubles the processing bandwidth that the processor and the wires and like everything in that photo stack has to do in order to like successfully autofocus. And so one of the theories out here is that they have just like built more bandwidth into the technology stack in order to dual pixel AF. And whenever you take a picture, like it's not autofocusing while it's taking a picture. So I know I always say like, oh, it has half the pixels. Well, it does actually read the full pixel area of both sides. Yeah. It's not like one side is not doing photo stuff and one side is doing photo stuff. It's one pixel and you get all the image data off of one pixel. It's just that it can split it in half to consider for autofocus. So you are getting the full resolution on a Canon camera. Unlike what I've maybe said in the past, which was mostly a joke, but that's fine. Anyways, one theory is because of dual pixel AF, you got bigger pipes. Therefore,
bigger pipes.
Faster.
I mean,
faster photo.
But then you have to ask, like, why hasn't Sony built bigger pipes?
Maybe they just don't think they need it. Maybe it's a cost thing.
Could be.
They're able to do the autofocus for less, whatever.
I mean, because I definitely believe that as a result of Canon's autofocus strategy, they also happen to have this thing that is faster. It just seems like such a competitive advantage. I guess if it was just that, it'd be surprising if other companies weren't trying to do the same thing.
I don't buy it. I don't buy that theory. Maybe it has something to do with it, but that was one of like the possible theories out there of, maybe it has to do with how they're doing their autofocus just leads to having it to be faster. The other thing is like all of us are obsessed with stack sensors right now. And you know what, Daniel? It doesn't have to be stacked to be fast.
Doesn't have to be stacked to be fast. Heard it here first.
Stacked doesn't equal fast.
But why not?
It's you know how like whenever we like system on a chip stuff with computer manufacturing where it's like you just got to get the RAM closer to the processor.
Yeah.
Stacked is kind of effectively the same thing. It's like, what if we move those process units, under like layered the chip in this way instead of doing it flat, and like we can get those processing components closer. And so like that does make it faster, but it also has to do with like where you're stacking like the buffer component, like that memory buffer. And like if you, depending on how you configure it, yes, it can be faster stacked, but if you're not configuring it in that way from the start as like a design philosophy, it maybe matters less. And so it's like Sony's pushing more in that direction of advancement, whereas Canon just maybe necessarily isn't until recently.
Yeah. They're achieving the speed in other ways, and so maybe they haven't needed to go down that road.
Right. So the other thing that is interesting, I guess, is like with like the newer Canon cameras, what they have implemented in their sensors is this thing called column parallel sensor like technology. And I threw a link in here for interesting whatever about it. But Sony has been doing column parallel like sensor tech for a while. I think whenever they first came out with what do they call them? It's like it's not Exynos, but Exnor. That's what it is. So Sony started doing this like CDS, which is like that column parallelization, where you have a column of pixels, and instead of like reading like this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, you're like doing more like you're parallelizing that computation.
Okay.
And let's see if I can remember exactly how to explain this. It has to do with reading groups of data like in a certain stack to like reduce the processing time. And so it's like instead of doing all whatever like 14 bits or whatever, it's like you do the big bits and then you do like the little bits.
Yeah, it looks like what your description here is saying is that like you maybe, like if we were putting it in simpler terms, you start by getting kind of a rough estimate of what your thing is, like maybe like how bright it is. Like you're just getting like the really like high order bits. Like is this like
right,
really really big number or not? And then you use that result to kind of start charging up a capacitor, because that takes an amount of time. Like it takes time to charge something up.
right,
And so you start charging it up, and then while you're doing that, you measure more precisely. You get the lower bits in that measurement, and then that tells you kind of like when to stop charging. So
right.
it's almost like they're like pipelining the output. Like instead of saying like, let's do this whole measurement that's going to take us like a long time, and then we'll do the whole like charging, which is like storing the data basically. They're kind of like pipelining it. Like they're doing a quick measurement, and then they're starting to store the data, and then they figure out exactly what, do the more precise measurement, and then use that to know like exactly what to store. That's pretty clever.
Yeah. So Sony started doing that like first with XNOR.
Okay.
And Canon has since patented their own version of it. And they patented it in like 20, and
mid 2010s.
Yeah, something like that. And it seems like the first cameras with that technology were like the R6 II, the R5 II, the R1.
So like the current or recent crop.
Yeah, and like whenever the R6 II came out, it was like, wow, this is the first full frame camera that can shoot 4K 60 on a crop. And it seems like it was Canon jumping onto this technology trend that Sony kind of pioneered, but Canon has their own version because like they do have their own specific patent for it. And so it seems like maybe this has to do with a little bit with maybe the bigger pipes, plus how they're doing this column parallelization for, collecting the bits off of the sensor. And then the other part that seems to maybe be true just based upon like dynamic range information from the sensor is that it seems like Canon might be applying a lower amplification on the electrical data coming off of the sensor.
What effect does that have?
So like if you have less amplification, it takes less time to settle that signal.
Okay.
But if you have less amplification, you're losing on signal to noise ratio, which we talked about like 2 or 3 episodes ago. Like we went super deep on signal noise ratio stuff and like what that does to dynamic range and like ISO and variance and all that sort of thing. Very similar situation here. If you look at the low ISO settings where you're least sensitive and you compare an R6 Mark III to a Sony a7 IV, once you get below about 500 ISO, the a7 V is substantially better in dynamic range.
Interesting.
By, somewhere in the order of like 1.5 to 2 stops consistently. That's from significant. 100 to like 600 ISO.
Yeah. And that's good to know if you shoot a camera like that. Like maybe you want to consider getting an ND filter, instead of lowering your ISO that much.
It's substantial. I mean, at peak DR, the R6 at 100 ISO is doing like 11.5, and the A7 V is doing like 12.5. So it's just like a stop. And once you get down to that 600 ISO mark, they're like in lockstep. It's just as good.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that is likely due to the lower amplification. And so Sony, you can just get a less noisy, quote unquote, better quality image off the Sony sensor because they have this better signal, this like more amplified signal.
Yeah.
Therefore, the signal noise ratio is better. Therefore, the noise performance on the Sony sensor is going to be better.
Yeah, but potentially at the cost of some speed.
Yeah, and it's coming at the cost of speed. So even though they have this partially stacked sensor, it is as fast or maybe like you seem like it would be way faster than a non-stack sensor, but it isn't.
But it's like competitive with it maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like this interesting situation there. The other bit of stuff that it seems like could be related is like how they're doing ADC. So, which is it's noise reduction. Noise reduction ahead of the analog to digital converter or after. So like one of the big deals with the XNOR processor whenever it came out from Sony, which is like any of their current sensor tech is XNOR sensors. Sony has been pushing a lot of their processing for noise to the digital side. They want to do as much of it on the digital side as they can.
I guess it's faster probably.
Right. And so, I think they can do more or whatever. So it's like,
yeah, I can see that too. Yeah.
do the parallelization, do the stack sensor, and get it into digital as fast as you can. Then do all the noise stuff in digital,
Okay.
and so that they can have lower noise analog, read as soon as you can, and then do all your noise reduction as digital. Like they are doing some, massaging of the signal ahead of the ADC, but it seems like over the years Canon has often prioritized trying to clean the signal a little bit more on the analog side, and it seems like they're maybe doing less of the digital side, which is just processor time.
Sure.
And so it seems like it's a combination of like all of this stuff where maybe it has to do with like the bandwidth and dual pixel AF, has to do with the lower signal, how their proprietary like CDS process for how are they doing. Actually, CDS is noise reduction, but their proprietary process for the parallelization and all this sort of stuff. So yeah.
So it sounds like there's a lot of factors, and they basically just have approached their sensor design and image pipeline, maybe quite a bit differently than, say, Sony.
Yes, quite a bit different. The CDS thing, which I kind of skipped over because I'm like reading my notes while talking to you, is that has to do with the noise reduction. And so like all the CMOS stuff is doing what is called correlated double sampling, where they will read information off will read the signal twice.
Okay.
And then like diff them basically to figure out what the noise is.
Like to try and reduce the error, which is noise in this case.
Yeah, and then like take the noise out. And it seems like Sony's external processors are characterized by doing CDS after the ADC. And that's kind of like what we're talking about, is that it seems like Sony's doing CDS twice, like before and after.
Okay.
And it seems like maybe Canon isn't. Like they're skipping one of those CDS processes. And so Canon is taking a like lower gain signal and also skipping one of those noise reduction.
But does this mean that Canon photos are noisier than Sony?
Yes.
So that's a trade-off.
And like, but also like you can just go look at sample pictures. Canon photos just have more noise in them.
Yeah.
And like I think with how you're processing your RAWs and Lightroom and all that stuff, maybe like it doesn't matter. But and I think Canon has chosen to take that trade-off for speed. They're able to produce a cheaper sensor that's not stacked, and it can competitively operate at speeds similar to these stacked things.
It's an interesting trade-off to make. I mean, I think you can make arguments either way for what's worth it, but it makes sense. I mean, hearing all this, it makes sense that that's the result you would see, but that the sensor would also be faster than, say, Sony sensors.
So it seems like, you see this a lot with any electronic development, right? Say, like an iPhone battery. People talk about this all the time, where it's like, okay, the processor got better. We just got battery gains. Okay, let's spend those gains by making the battery smaller, reducing the weight or whatever. And it's like, your goal is some target level performance. Yeah. And then you spend your gains in technology advancements to make improvements.
Yeah, sort of I think all these companies have metrics basically they're trying to hit for things like noise, speed, etc., and then they sort of optimize everything else based on those things. And
it seems like with like the signal amplification and how you're doing the noise reduction, and it like Sony has invested in this stack technology to speed things up. And then they're taking that speed and cashing it in on improving the cleanliness of the image and the dynamic range. And you're looking at it like going, well, how come it doesn't read as fast as the Canon? And it's like, well, because you're getting a better image off of it.
Yeah. It's like they optimize differently. You get a different set of trade-offs.
Yep. And then the last little bit, the smoking gun here, is that those really fast publicized read speeds off the Canon are at 12-bit, not 14-bit.
Oh.
So that's really the main thing. It's like all of the, the rolling shutter in the electronic shutter burst modes where it's shooting 40 frames per second in photo, and it's doing like 9 millisecond rolling shutter or whatever. All of that's 12-bit. And whenever you're shooting video and like RAW or whatever, that's 10-bit or 12-bit. Even what's interesting is like if you go look at the specifications for the R6 Mark III and you read like the raw stuff in electronic shutter, what it says is raw electronic shutter 14-bit with 12-bit AD conversion Canon original. That's what it says in the manual, which means that similar to the whole GFX 100 move, it's delivering you a 14-bit container with 12 bits of data in it whenever you shoot in electronic shutter.
It's padding some zeros on there or something.
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, it's like we talk about all of the sensor stuff, and I bet that the 12-bit versus 14-bit is the main thing.
Yeah.
There's just less data.
Might be.
It's like a lot less data, right? I mean, that's 2 to the power of.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot fewer zeros.
It is a lot fewer zeros. But, it's interesting to look and see, if you take a 12-bit photo from one of these cameras and a 14-bit, how often does that really make a difference in, what raw editing you can do?
It's going to come down to dynamic range because light squares with the, distance, or like if you double the light, it's blah, 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 square. And so you're not going to get more than like 14 stops of dynamic range out of a 14-bit image.
Yeah.
So you're only going to get 12 stops of dynamic range out of a 12-bit image, which you can see from the dynamic range charts is like they're just under 12, whereas the Sony is just over 12.
Some of this stuff I feel like is going to, like the Canon trade-offs. It's kind of funny since that, these photo companies first, but this stuff matters less on video because most people are not shooting raw video at super high bit rates, and if you're shooting video, then like you're taking advantage of the better rolling shutter and all that stuff. And those optimizations seem like they almost make more sense on video than photo.
And it also seems like, they're still doing, full sensor readout raw, and Sony is capping it at 4K. And that, I don't know if that's a software development like choice by Sony to not, push past 4K on the A7 IV, or if it's a limitation of the sensor and they just don't want to like do whatever.
Yeah.
But it seems like, not having crop modes, Canon is still doing some speed things here that Sony seems to not be able to meet them at, or has chosen not to meet them at. Some of these like uncropped 4K modes that the R6 Mark III can do. So I don't think it's exclusively that, they're just shooting at a lower bit rate and so it's not as good. I think that Canon is just making very specific trade-offs, and they have done something really, really interesting with this non-stacked, non-backside illuminated CMOS sensor, and like just whatever they're doing, like how they're doing their sensor stack lets them do some interesting, fast things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting to understand a little bit more about, what's inside there and why it's so different.
For sure. And so like in digging through all of this, I mean, I guess like my big conclusions are that the A7 IV is, if you just want the best image quality in a mid-range mirrorless camera, full frame, the A7 V is going to be better than the R6 III.
Yeah, better noise reduction maybe.
It's going to have more dynamic range. You're going to have cleaner photos, and I think it's maybe a more advanced sensor in certain ways.
It doesn't have those Canon colors.
It also doesn't have dual pixel autofocus, and it doesn't have as fast burst rates. And really, like, unless you're shooting, if you're shooting like sports and action, like, yeah, sure, if it's a bright sunny day, you probably need some of that dynamic range, but I think most people can get away with 12-bit and it'd be fine.
Yeah, I think so too.
So if you need the speed, like, the Canon's going to be able to keep up. And it's similar to like the Nikon Canon trade-off conversation of like, well, but Canon offered these, in the DSLR days. I don't know, you're comparing like a 1D whatever to like a D5 or D4.
Yeah.
It's like the Nikon made different trade-offs for like speed or price or the ISO performance or something. And it's just a similar situation here where Canon has made a certain set of trade-offs and you just kind of have to know what you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that it was going to be like the dynamic range and the noise was going to be that much better on the Sony.
Yeah, that is surprising to me too. I feel like that kind of stuff doesn't come up that much when you read reviews.
And maybe that much better is still a matter of like 2% better or 5% better or something like that.
Yeah, but you know it in your heart.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was like, do I need to take away camera of the year? 2025 from the R6 III? I mean, I didn't come to a conclusion, but it was a question that I asked myself. As the Camera Gear podcast, are we allowed to
I don't
even
feel like we can.
redact camera of the years? Like, is
I
that?
don't think we can. I think it's written in stone.
Yeah, it does feel like it's written in stone a little bit. So, one thing I saw, come like what's next for Canon, right? What are they going to do
how are they going to keep it going?
Yeah, whoop Sony here, and it seems like they're currently working on a triple layer stacked sensor.
They're like, you want to see a stacked sensor? What if we went 3 high instead of 2?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's like the top letters, the photodiodes, and then transfer switches and transistors. It's like 3 layers. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you want to explain what a transfer switch is?
I don't.
Okay.
Actually, I do know what a transfer switch is, but that's totally different.
I think it's a different transfer switch.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But yeah, so like, boy, I wrote a bunch of stuff here.
Basically, there's a patent, right, that they're working on, new technologies. It does sound like they're moving toward a stacked sensor type design.
Well, they already have a stacked sensor design. Like, it's in the R1. Like, they are doing stacked. But this triple layer thing, like, the whole goal of it is to reduce the resistance through the gates. Like, if you're reading a sensor, it's like, is it letting light through or is it not? Like, is it letting information through or data or whatever? And so, like, this triple layer, for a lot of reasons, go read the article, it basically, like, reduces the resistance through the gate, which allows them to reduce heat, which allows them to go faster.
Yeah.
And so that's the concept of like doing this triple layer thing, is it allows them to read off the sensor even faster by reducing heat.
Okay.
So maybe faster than the Sony stacked sensors.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll see. I don't know how long it'll take them to develop that and release it, but we'll see.
Okay. The other thing that Canon has been working on is I think we talked about this last January, but in January 2025, they revealed a 410 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor.
That had to have been like an industrial, inspecting things on a production line type camera.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually in anything. They just announced that they developed it, and it could shoot 8 frame per second video, and it could bend down to an 100 megapixel photo.
I mean, it has to be for some specialized use case. The trade-off with some of these high megapixel sensors, I mean, I've noticed on the Lumix S1R Mark II, it's noticeably worse in low light than the S1 too.
What's got smaller?
It has
pixels.
to be because the pixels are smaller.
Mm-hmm.
In good lighting, the pictures are way better because you get so much more resolution.
Mm-hmm.
But in low light, I'd rather have the S1 II for photo, which is I didn't expect to notice as much of a difference as I notice.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
That's something that you see something like a 410 megapixel sensor. And it's, it's exciting, right? It's like, oh man, I'd love to have that in a full-footed camera. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, I don't think I'd want it unless there's some strategy for how you're going to reduce noise. When you take a picture in low light.
Well, I think that's why one of the highlights here is that it can shoot bin photos at 100 megapixels.
Because that way, like you're basically making each of your pixels larger in some.
Yeah, it's the whole point of quad bear. It's like, here's a 48 megapixel sensor that shoots 12 megapixel photos. It gives you the option to be able to pull those high res whenever you have enough light, but you can get essentially bigger pixels by binning them.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's like what we're going to see next from Canon, right? Are they going to do something that's AAA, or are they going to do something that's wildly high resolution? I mean, we've been stuck at 63 megapixels for a while now on full frame. And I mean, like you said, it does get worse as you improve that density. And I think was like the GFX 100 is roughly the same pixel density as like a 40 megapixel APS-C or a 60 something megapixel full frame. Everything's kind of right now in that ballpark, and we haven't seen that density creep up. But like Canon obviously has the chops to do it. It's probably like a price on an application type thing. So it's, I mean, like it was whatever, like 3 or 4 years between this parallelization patent and when we saw that in the R6 II.
So that gives you kind of a timeline to think about in terms of when you'd maybe see something like this.
Yeah, and so it's like this triple layer patent thing coming out in January 25. We're not going to see stuff like that coming out until 29 or whatever. And or I guess it was the triple layer was maybe even later than January. It was the high megapixel one that was January. Anyways, so it's like this stuff is coming.
Yeah, it's on the horizon.
It's kind
somewhere.
of interesting what we're going to see that, and maybe like on R5 Mark III or whatever. But Yeah,
I'm glad Canon's out there making sensors, doing it different than Sony is, because I feel like that keeps the competition alive, and probably pushes both of these companies to innovate more, try different things, and I mean, we ultimately win as consumers by having more choices. So
I mean, to tie it back into like the Light L16 and that Illum camera, it's like someone was out there trying to innovate and do something different to like see where like how to test the market. And yeah, like ultimately failed, but I mean, it's hard to not think that maybe some of that computational photography like consideration then like moves into what our smartphones today.
Yeah, like it inspired somebody to add more of that into phones, something.
Yeah, and it's like Canon is clearly they're not doing what Sony's doing. Like, yes, Sony with the XNOR and like the way that they're doing that column parallelization is something that Canon eventually also did because it proved to be a much faster way to process signal. But also
that's how this stuff should work. Like each company tries different things, they see what works, and then sure, they're gonna kind of steal the best parts from each other. But that's like we win. That's great.
Exactly, right. And so it's like we really want Canon to be out here pioneering camera like sensor technology and doing something different with their like how they're processing the signal and how they're doing all that stuff from Sony. Because if Sony made everything, then they like the innovation would taper.
They would just coast. They wouldn't be pushed to try and improve things.
So that was my deep dive. I think that obviously the main point here was 12-bit versus 14-bit is probably the smoking gun.
Yeah.
But a lot of interesting stuff.
I think so. I mean, it's I guess to me, I always kind of think about camera sensors as all being kind of the same. I mean, maybe with X-trans versus beta being like maybe one notable difference, but for the most part, kind of like it's just a 60 megapixel sensor or whatever it is. But it's interesting to kind of look deeper into it and see like, no, these things actually do perform differently, and in things like low ISO or noise or whatever, like you might actually get different results depending on the brand. So, kind of cool
for sure, man. The other big takeaway of this is we all just need to spend more times on photons to photos.
You think so? Is that your new favorite site?
Man, you can really stare at charts for a long time.
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.